Hi everyone, it's Jerry. This is a group of 6 blitz games that Leela Chess Zero played against Stockfish 9 just the other night on leechess.org. I initially recorded these 6 blitz games without commentary, and I figured I'd just go ahead and rewatch it and add some very light comments along the way. They're all blitz games. First 5 are 5-0 time controlled, and the final one is a 3-0. And let me just say right off the bat that the results of this match are of no interest to me. I know what is going to happen. Stockfish 9 still king. How exactly will Stockfish 9 go about punishing Leela Chess Zero is kind of what has my attention. And, in what areas is Leela Chess Zero deficient still? So maybe at a later stage I can put out another video where Leela is a little bit stronger and see how it will do against Stockfish. But for now, just adding some light comments on these games. Leela is a fan of having a pawn on e5, I've noticed. Not just in these 6 games that you're about to see, but in the games played against Andrew Tang, and just from my the other games that I've observed Leela Chess play. Alpha Zero as well enjoyed having a pawn on e5. So there's a grip that black has. Stockfish has a grip over b3, and that c4 move is producing a nice square on c5. And we're about to see a tactic by black at this point here. Spot the tactic. Knight to g3. It's taking advantage of this pin. So if the rook moved, there'd be bishop takes f2 with the fork. So white is basically giving up the exchange here and has a pawn for it, but there's not going to be enough compensation. In fact, you could really see the black pieces coordinating well now on the f2 square. Queen bishop battery, the rook. King is still opposite the rook. So they actually play in game 5 this similar line. Leela ends up running into this, it doesn't make adjustments or anything to a previous line. So it goes right in for this variation, and the game is slightly different, but basically it goes in for this exchange down variation. The most interesting game to me is the 6th game, 3-0 time control. But for now, let's see how Stockfish 9 handles this one. Not the greatest square for the knight on b5. Not in the key 16 squares, and it's not really combined with any other white pieces. There will be this d6 move now. And this is threatening a bishop d5 fork. It's easily parried. And just getting away. King in the corner. So there is this connection with the knight on c7, the knight and pawn. But it's not really a serious threat. The rook can always duck. And this is a pretty invasive queen on c4. So, giving up a pawn now. So what's the imbalance? It's just an exchange at this stage. Super active queen. And an environment that is ideal for the side with the exchange up. Plenty of open files to work with. Seems like white's going to be getting material back, but there is this nice shot. Queen takes rook would have queen takes rook, and this is what we have in the game. So that was black's way out of this little fork on e6, and is now not only up the exchange, but also a pawn. Okay, that's regained. So eventually this rook will become active. Just need a flight square to free up the rook. Can't quite recall if black actually inserts a flight square. But this knight is now not really within great reach of the black king. A little pin here. So these games were really fun to watch just the other night live, and you could see the some of the chat going on here. Some interesting notes that the spectators are adding for some of the games. So knight is still in a pin. This pawn is now passed, and if white doesn't do anything, there's always this very clear plan of advancing the a pawn. And there's not really a way to coordinate the queen and knight. Be nice if you could teleport to f7 for a smothered mate. It's just not happening. Is now the time the rook gets active? No, not just yet. Saves the pawn. Everything is glued together for Stockfish 9. And a g3 move, so not the greatest shelter for the white king, and now here comes the rook. Not fun when you have to step up like this. So now it's the black pieces that are swarming in. h1 in mind. The queen or the rook. There's a check. That was an only move. Played in a blink. 222 for Leela. I think we have h6 at some stage. Is now the moment? No, not just yet. King is running for his life. Not the, there we go. Not the greatest home for the king. And I think we're just a few moves out from mate in this one. Just pitching some pawns now. Leela. The next 3 games that we're going to see are Leela has the black pieces. And oh yeah, here's the other thing. The opening choice is interesting as well, and that's mate right there. Happened pretty quick, but yeah, the opening choice is interesting. So the first game there, Leela with white enjoys apparently this advanced variation of the French, and what we're going to see now, and in the next 2 games as well, Leela enjoys the Philidor defense, which is solid but passive. Instructive to see how Stockfish 9 ends up punishing this. I feel that in this game and the next one, it kind of reaches a point where Leela, just regarding the opening, you get to a point where it's tough to find a way to improve. You know, you're getting these developing moves in, and this lack of space. We have an e4 versus d6 battle. So just a tiny bit more space for white, further advanced central pawn. And I think we end up working with all minor pieces. I don't know if we see another exchange for quite some time, and it's difficult to find ways to improve. So opting for kingside fianchetto. This knight can always drop in there. This is a strong square for white. And the bishop, pawn, the knight, all coordinated here. Queen as well, indirectly. So I think this is a pretty standard move at some stage. c6, taking control over the d5 square. You know, just making some observations. I've noticed in the game I played against Leela Chess Zero when it was at ID 179. Totally different opening, but Leela with black ended up having 2 knights just like this. Knight on f6, knight on e5. And from some of the other games I was watching Leela Chess Zero play on leechess.org, seems to, I don't know, have a liking for the e5 square with the queen knight. I don't know what that means. Just an observation. So still, just a single pawn exchanged. still with the space advantage, Stockfish 9. Yeah, this next sequence is kind of interesting to me. Typically, human would play King H2, but we have Queen F1 by Stockfish. Interesting way to defend and also allow the rook to get involved. Not sure if that happens right here. Yeah, it is. Getting on a half-open file now. They stay right around the same time-wise. Maybe just a difference of 30 seconds at most. So now there's a threat of a knight move. Discovered attack against the queen. And this queen, what to do? Queen A3. This queen is kind of going astray. Getting very active now. And it's not combined with any other black piece. a very mysterious knight H8 move. I think you'll have some comments here. I think some people were commenting on the knight H8 move, yeah. The account that is behind CruelBot, I should add, Krypton, is the one who is running this bot. And yeah, Queen A3, and then this little mysterious knight move into the corner, kind of lacking a plan, clearly. And what we're going to see here is that the queen has gotten a little too aggressive. In fact, I mean, there's the threat of B4 trapping the queen, so D5, a very lashing out move, just so the queen could try to get away, but Stockfish is having none of that. And this is really leading to, Black's loss in this second game, is the queen getting way too aggressive. Queen B6, Queen B4, Queen A3, with still all this traffic on the board. Bound to get trapped, and Leela was just not aware. That's probably not the right word to be using, but yeah. A little too aggressive there, Leela, with the queen. Not combined with any other piece, and it ends up getting trapped. So this one's a goner. How will Stockfish 9 handle this? I don't know that I think maybe the longest game is the final game, move-wise. The others, well, this one here, I don't know. Maybe move 60 it reaches. Here's another thing. Occasionally, you'll see this put out here. Yeah, you could check with the eval command, exclamation point eval, and it shows you the depth that Leela Chess Zero is at, 22, and what it thinks of the position minus 279, which is minus 2.79. It's the centipawn, minus 279. So nearly 3 points down is Leela Chess Zero's estimate. Now a little bit more, minus 3.62. You can get the idea. Yeah, I'll wait for the one game to share how this CruelBot has been tweaked slightly. You'll end up seeing it by Krypton in the chat points out what he did to Stockfish 9. There's a slight tweak. We'll see why exactly the name CruelBot is CruelBot, or is cruel. But yeah, this is Stockfish 9. Krypton is a national master, by the way. Runs a stream on Twitch as well. So this is a problem, G7. And as you would expect, eventually there's just not going to be a way to defend, to crawl up into a ball at this stage. And we got all sorts of things. Queen up position, basically. Pin on the knight. And now sacrifice. White is taking all the material and hitting everything. two rooks, and they can't be moved and defend one another. So there goes the rook. Black is down to just two pieces. Yeah, I think the next game with the Philidor is similar to this one, with the space advantage for white being a big factor in the game, and still so many pieces on board. Be interesting to see if, at what point will Leela maybe start to better appreciate these position types and give greater value to, when will Leela Chess Zero understand that it's not really a good choice to play these position types down on space and still with all this material present. And that's mate. Final move there. Taking a rook. Black didn't have any pieces remaining in that one. Mate on the board. So another Philidor coming. Yeah. Leela Chess is pointing out that really weak compared to Stockfish 9, no chance. Yeah. I guess we'll have to wait and see if future strengths of Leela, or future IDs of Leela Chess Zero, will be able to surpass Stockfish. Who knows? Interesting to watch for sure. Slight deviation, I believe, at this stage. Okay, we don't have white opting for a fianchetto in this game. So a slightly different structure happening out of the Philidor here. Bishop d3. Some security for the e4 pawn. I'm not sure if this knight ends up drifting into e5. And that's what made me think about the knights on f6 and e5. Staying very flexible with the queenside pieces right now. A lot of kingside play. Typical regrouping. Rook e8, bishop to f8. Still nothing happening here. Knight to d7 right now, so it could drop in to e5. White's knights stand very well. All of white's pieces, the minor pieces. Light square for white. h6 at some stage for black, producing a flight square. We have queenside play now. So possibly looking for some expansion with b5, some more regrouping by Stockfish. No knight e5 in this one. Knight c5. So notice all four knights. Key 16. Clear lack of time, lack of plan for black. Knight c5, knight d7. Big waste. And here we go, some action by white on the queen side, looking to clamp down on the a6 and b7 structure. So we do have that. And I think we do have knight to b5. So there with knight d7, knight c5, knight back to d7, and in the end, there we go, it is once again arriving on the e5 square. And yeah, here we could actually see now, I was pointing this out earlier, a slight tweak was made to Stockfish 9. Krypton is pointing out that he made it prefer to sandbag when the evaluation is between 1 and 5. Plays the worst moves that keep it within this range. And the other note, he also made this Stockfish 9 prefer under promotions and make sure to capture all the enemy pieces before winning. which is what we saw in the last game. Why I drew some attention to all pieces being captured. This doesn't always happen, but that's why we have the cruel name. Cruelbot. Big Green Shrek is a fan of that. This version of Stockfish. But anyhow, what is happening here? Still all pieces on board, just a couple pawns exchanged. And still an e4 versus d6 battle. Some targets as well for black. This knight has actually gone a little bit too aggressive. It's without a square. f4 trapping the knight. So, now material imbalance. Black has 2 pawns for the piece. These are important pawns. You know, this is near the king. 2 pawns. Less for the white king, no shelter there. But there really isn't a way to press this one. White has some targets on the queen side as well. a6 is isolated. These guys are okay. Could work well together, but this is a weak link for sure. Some other things that I've noticed when watching Leela, well, really just computer games, bot games in general. You know, when you see a human play against a computer, how often are you able to, how often is a human player able to establish a piece in the computer's camp? You know, it's rare that you're able to put a piece there and it stick around. It seems to always address that and does very well to be in your house, as is the case right here. Stockfish, superior player here, obviously. 1 piece at the moment in black's house, and no black pieces in white's house. It's opening up some. What's the imbalance now? It's still 2 pawns for the piece. No, my mistake. It's worse than that. There was another piece that was won there while I was busy talking over here about pawn structures and an isolated pawn on a6. So Stockfish 9 has 2 minor pieces versus 2 pawns. So this is another game that black's pieces all end up getting captured. Not the pawns, just the pieces before checkmate. Yeah, here's another interesting note. Leela tends to get into unusual imbalances when playing against Stockfish. Yeah, I'm intrigued as well. Some pressure on the c-file, but nothing that you could really do. There's still no black piece in white's house. These knights are now going to swarm in. There's a nice little tactic, I believe, coming up by white. Yeah, we're not far off from seeing some tactical shot. I think right around here, rooks are really starting to coordinate. We have the queen bearing down at the king. Is this the moment? Yeah, that's the moment. I knew it was close by. Rook takes on h6, followed by a quiet move, threatening mate on h8, so that stopped with f6, a weakening move before picking up the rook on c7. And there goes the queen. 2 knights and a queen versus a rook and a bishop. Yeah, just about 15-second difference there between the two. Yeah, bishop's going to get captured soon. Yeah, both of these pieces end up falling. I think we have just this, the king capturing the rook, or a queen. I think maybe rook to h2. And mate in a couple. Yeah, the threat there was queen to h7, so. Yeah, and there's nothing to do. The king can't move. Knight f6 next is mate. True to its name, a very cruel bot. All pieces gone and a mate on board. So this is the final game Leela plays as black. One more Philidor, but completely different structure in this one. interesting decision very early on as well. So this game right here really highlights where Leela is deficient. One of the areas that Leela is still deficient. This next move, c5, is a huge error. d5 is now a hole, and two white pieces already eyeing up the d5 point. This is a huge problem. So this bishop ends up getting embarrassed. This is a bad bishop, or this is the bad bishop for black. This account here, DW232 Chess, Fildor with c5 now. Yeah. Not a good decision. Maybe in a different scenario where, let's say the bishop is inside of the pawn chain and isn't able to, have an influence on this weak point. But it's not a good decision. Notice the decision by Stockfish 9. Some players at this stage with the bishop threatened would back up, preparing to meet knight takes bishop with a capture towards the center, but in this case, it's quite all right to be taking away from the center because this d6 pawn is backward. So it's not only that the d5 square is weak with the move c5, but the d6 pawn is a target. So being able to capture away from the center is peeling open the d file so the major pieces can target it. So black is was watching over d5 with a couple pieces, but notice the nice harmony. Stockfish, rooks in the center, knights beautiful, f3, c3. Perfect control over all the center squares, and here we go. The knight just jumps on in there, and Leela parts ways with the more valuable of the two bishops. And this pawn remains backwards. So this isn't a moment to say, you know what, let me undouble my pawns. No. White wants to keep these majors. Eyeing d6. Flight square for Stockfish. And black really can't do anything. If you consider in this game right now, how can black make a pawn exchange? Well, how can black make a favorable pawn exchange? It doesn't exist. Nothing going on with d5. Nothing going on with b5 or f5 because of the queen's influence. Both directions, both diagonals. And now we have a case, the big imbalance here is knight versus bishop, or knight versus really bad bishop. See all these light squares, d5, knight could get here. It's going to be a big problem. I don't think it ends up getting to d5 in this game, though. But it certainly can find some nice outposts on light squares. And this is just completely dead now. Tall pawn syndrome, bishop on e7. We saw Alpha Zero do this to Stockfish 8. Well, not quite as severe as in this game, but Alpha Zero had a way of really punishing Stockfish 8's bishop, light squared bishop, in the French defense is the one variation, or the one opening I'm thinking about. And there's no way to improve in this particular structure. I mean, is Leela still thinking, that this is a good idea? Still has not maybe come up with the, understanding that having the bishop on the same color as the pawns is terrible. Remaining bishop, pawns on same color. This pawn could be picked up at any moment, I believe. Well, no, not just yet. Rook over here, and then this pawn will fall, so everything is completely locked over here. The king has Great security with the pawns, with the knight. Beautiful piece on b5. White's just looking for the b4 move, but wants to hang on to the pawn. So this f5 move provides a square for the bishop. It's trying to get active, but that's shot down immediately. There's one black pawn in White's house, but the superior side seems to always end up having pieces on the opponent's side of the board. The b file getting ripped open. Pawns are straightened out, and this position can open up more. Kings on opposite wings, c5 at some stage. I don't know if c5 is played in this game. No, just transfer the b file. Nothing's happening for the rook there. Target this weak pawn on d6. That was a check. c5. It's opening up some more. Completely open file. A dead rook on f8, who has a terrible job of watching over this dead bishop. And now, just some forcing line. Actually, the bishop's just gone, right? It's a free piece, and it just goes way downhill from here. Fork thread on d7. White's just up a piece now. I don't know if Cruelbot ends up winning with all black pieces off the board in this one. No, I don't think it gets to that point. There's nothing happening against the white king here. There's a check. The king could just step up to h3. King is getting flushed. Queen and knight are coordinated on these dark squares. Yeah, I think the final position, the queen is still on board in this one. So just two more games after this. Leela playing white in both. No mate just yet. Well, I think it's a queen to d1 move for mate. Not here. Close. Close to it. Yeah, here we go. I think mate next. Queen somewhere and then queen d1. No, first the check. Queen move and then queen d1 if I'm recalling correctly. There we go. Queen d1 is mate. Nice coordination with the knight and the queen there. So just two more. Leela with white now. Oh yeah, this is the one where we once more have an advanced French. So, another French. And that same little tactic ends up coming about. So it's instructive, some instructive notes to take away out of this particular line. The e5 and d4 supporting the center. When white plays a3, really trying to expand with b4 and put some pressure on c5 and have this pawn commit. But whenever a3 is played, c4 immediately clamps down on b3. Also this undermining idea. So I believe right now it's the c4 move. Or no, first f6. I think in the first game out of this opening it was c4 straight away. Could be wrong. Yeah. Might have been this as well, but this idea is present in both for sure. c4 clamping down in this structure and providing a square for the bishop. And it really ties in well. I mean, there's so many nice things to say about this move. Structurally, clamping down on the structure, providing a square for an undeveloped piece. c5, and the queen bishop, and eventually once castled, the rook. All targeting the weakest point in white's camp, f2. So, yeah, now that the knight is blocking the bishop, there is this opportunity for knight h6 to f5. I don't know that it really matters, to be honest. Knight e7 or h6. It seems like he's going to get to f5 either way. I don't know if there's a great difference. Yeah, so the same tactic ends up coming about, taking advantage of the pin. I can't quite recall where it varies. So we're still following that other game with this opening. Same result. Stockfish 9 will go on to win this one as well. You can see the match score. They played one game last night that I wasn't in time to record. So just caught the last 6. Not able to draw the lines or the arrows, unfortunately. This is a re-record with some light comments. So it still feels like it's similar position. Yeah, e5, knight b5, queen c4. A game of memory now. I think we have d6 as well. Still trying for this, or maybe e4 here. King h8 in the other game. Is it e4 here? Yeah, e4. So I think this is the first spot that it deviates. So that's how it's defending against knight to d5. And the queen is just looking to reposition and target f2. So that's another approach, yeah. Ricardo is noting deja vu. So queen f2, e3 pawn is weak. It's a really clumsy piece on b5. I'd rather have him somewhere near the king side, right? Combined with something against the king. He's a ways away, though. Nice tactical shot coming up by Stockfish in this ending. Cool rook move. So, well, actually multiple tactical shots. This is the first, and a little bit later we're going to have a rook move. So this is a problem. 2 minors versus the rook position coming up. Here we go. King is getting pulled forward, with still all this material aboard. e3 can fall soon. Bishop block. The queen is there defending. There goes e3, and with that, black now has a passer. Yeah, compare the kings. It's also dropping a knight. Black is once more back to being up the exchange. 2 passers. When I was watching this live, I thought, given just a little bit of time, these pawns could be quite valuable. But I haven't referenced this in a bit, but this is what Leela thinks about the position right about now, -157. But I think Stockfish probably has it all calculated out by this point. Yeah, bishop's going to drop. Given a move, black would like to give check and then checkmate, but that move is never going to happen. Nice g5 move in there. King back, it's mate in 1. Gotta go forward. Rook f6. Safeguarding the diagonal for the moment. No queen checks on the diagonal. Now h5, there was a mate threat. King takes g5, and now the final rook get involved. 2 rooks and a queen attacking a king. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid to sacrifice one of them, and here we go. To have some influence on the structure, queen takes rook is met with queen h1 mate, and pawn takes is met with queen f2. And mate next. King here, queen here, and king takes pawn, mate next. Okay, this here is the final game. Different opening. e4, e5. What variation? Not the Scotch opening. We've seen the Scotch opening when Leela played against Grandmaster Andrew Tang. Not here. We have Leela Chess Zero playing the Berlin. One of the most quiet lines in the game here. Symmetrical pawn structure. E-pawns are gone. And there's even a sacrifice of a pawn. So let's see this. Bishop f6. I think the rook comes all the way back. Carlsen with white against Karyakin. I think that was the color. Those, not recalling exactly who had what color. But there was a rook to e2 move in reply to bishop f6. Rook e2, rook e1. White is now down a pawn. This was the World Chess Championship I'm referring to. One of the games from that match. White is down a pawn, but has very active pieces now. And, in fact, acquires the bishop pair with this knight move. So, what's going to happen with this one? Two bishops versus a knight and bishop. White is now down 2 pawns, but we'll be getting one of them back. The b7 pawn. And that's not just any pawn either. Without the b pawn, these guys become weak. a7, c7 become targets. So in exchange, no longer the bishop pair, but Leela maintains the superior minor piece, getting a pawn back. White's down a pawn, but has the more active major piece. More active pieces. Okay, we have an exchange, bishop for knight. Flight square at this stage? Yeah, flight square. Multi-purpose move, really. Yeah, h4 was even looking... Should the queens have still been on board? It could be white who can subject the black king to some problems. I wonder if maybe a better decision instead of h4 was to maybe keep the queens on the board and then go for this h4, h5 idea. You know, this is not a nice shelter for the black king. But things are now, like, if it was still tactical, in other words. So if the queens are still on the board, this king's home is not sufficient. But queen's off the board now. These tactics aren't available. Becomes much more technical. Stockfish getting now very central. White has the more active rook, but black has the more active king. Black is still up a pawn. And I think we're going to see, yeah, here's one of the evaluations. It said 37. So Leela thinks it's actually a little bit better in this position, if I was reading that right. But I'm not sure why that would be. Black is up a pawn. Maybe giving too great a weight to this passer, whereas black doesn't have a passed pawn just yet. So this little advance, new square for the rook. Black now has an active rook. Things have turned quite a bit. Black has the more active pieces, more active king, more active rook, and the material is balanced. It's tough to get this pawn rolling. You know, after this little transfer, this rook is going to be in some trouble. I think we have a rook c8 move, king to b6, and now this king could kind of go hunting. Or even now, the transfer. So if white just stuck around on a7, that was one of the ideas, king b6, and then pick up the pawn since c7 is defended. A little role reversal of c7 point. Black is now back to being up a pawn. And this is what the evaluation is currently. Leela's estimate, -148. minus 1.48. So I think eventually we end up having a pawn race in this one. So I was actually getting pretty excited when I saw this game live. The activity of the white rook. I was like, can this really be possible? That Leela can draw against Stockfish 9, but once this position came about, once I started to see this, well, the evaluation aside, once we had two connected passers versus this one, I knew it wasn't going to end in Leela's favor. It wasn't going to end up as a draw. Black is just too fast here. Two connected passers are too strong. And maybe it reaches move 75 or something. There's no resigning. Goes right on to mate. So yeah, we're getting to the very end here. I think at some later stage, I don't know, we could revisit a match like this and see what kind of progress Leela is making against a top engine such as Stockfish 9. Not sure at what point to do this. This ID that Leela is currently at for these 6 games, 185, with about 8 million, 8.5 million self-play games. We'll see, I don't know, maybe at 15 million, 20 million games, another match, possibly between Stockfish 9 and Leela Chess. Anyhow, give some suggestions for me, if you'd like, in the comment section below. And we'll see if we can maybe do this at a later stage. And any feedback, as usual, is appreciated. And I hope you enjoyed this video. That's all for now. Take care.